Welcome back to World's Best Physio, and thank you, Andrew, for throwing your hat in the ring.
Well, I didn't throw my hat in the ring. Other people throw my hat in the ring for me.
Yes, yes, but when invited to answer the question, "Are you the world's best physio?" you did say naturally.
Naturally, I will come on it.
Naturally.
Fine.
Well, on that note, we'll get cracking with the most provocative questions. We spoke briefly offline for the first time, I might add. We haven't spoken before today. Um,
Never spoken towards, no.
what would you like to provoke or discuss in the time we have today?
Oh, the paucity of education and the absolute corruption of the Western education system. How about that?
All right. All right.
What
Well,
has
that's
happened since the year 2000?
so I can see you're starting off on a softball question.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so the corruption and the paucity of education, are you
Mm.
specifically speaking about the Western countries or all physiotherapy schools?
Well, the Western countries I've dealt with, as far as let's look at US, Australia, and the UK, they all seem to be relatively um, destroyed and corrupted and graduating people who think that reading a research paper that they don't understand and then quoting it
Yes.
means within their own participation award world means that they actually have some form of insight. You
I'd
don't
like,
have insight until you're a clinician.
well, or if there was an alternative way of being educated, I would say if there was an apprenticeship style education for physiotherapy, kind of
Mm.
like any plumber or
Oh,
electrician, right? Yeah, they learn. Where do they learn? They learn out on the streets, doing jobs, helping people in their homes, helping people in their businesses, and then they go to trade school, maybe 1 or 2 nights a week, and they get the theory that way, but they get the practical stuff first. And or not, sorry, they get them simultaneously, but it's mostly practical. And so I would think if someone was the age of 17, 18, finishing school, and they were able to follow you around full time, helping you as a physio assistant, getting paid to do that, not getting paid a regular practitioner
mm.
wage, but getting paid an apprenticeship wage, and learning from that, what do you think the education outcome would be compared to a university degree?
They'd be far more brilliant within 12 months than they would be at 6 years at university. And now, what you bring up, well, there is a really interesting point. So when I graduated, the first job I got was at the most eminent sports medicine center in the country and was certainly considered to be the world's leading shoulder center. Now, my first day at work, I walked in as the bottom of the rung, the bottom of the ladder. And the boss, I was to go see her in her office. I entered the office. I was not offered to sit down. She just looked at me straight away and said, "Your job here is to become the best in the world at something.
Hmm.
And I'm the best in the world at shoulders, so piss off and choose something else."
Right.
That's
I
where
I
it
could have a
began.
guess about who that was, but it's not really the point of the conversation. The point I'm getting, I'm guessing the point, Andrew, is that there was a certain survival of the fittest mentality when you started in your career. It was you're either the best in the world, and it's not going to be in this field because you better watch your back, mate, if you're going after shoulders.
Yep.
It was you better be the best in the world, and then you'll survive, or you you're just another entrant, and that won't be useful for anyone.
And you won't be working for us because
Right.
you only get to work at this level if you're prepared to become a world leader at something. And you're not going to get it in 1 year.
Mm.
So you're gonna suck. You're going to work 14 days a week.
Hmm.
You're going to work your normal shifts at the practice. You are going to be working for two football teams.
And you're going
You're
to
going to
pay
be,
us to work 14 hours a week.
yeah, and about $20 probably an hour if you're lucky, and maybe $20 for a whole football game.
Have you seen that
Yeah,
Monty Python skit where they're having this competition about who was the most unfortunate in their childhood?
I've seen most of Monty Python. I can't remember that one.
Oh, you were lucky. We had to pay the man to be there working 8 hours a week. And when we got home, our dad would kill us every day before we woke up the next day.
Pretty much how it should be.
Excuse me.
So yeah, that's how it began. That's it. That was me being tossed into the deep end And of
Mm,
course, that meant I better know shoulders because I'm going to be going into surgery with the best surgeons in the country.
yes.
And they're going to be asking me questions of anatomy while they're doing their surgery anyway.
Mm,
So you're expected that you are going to be competent on shoulders,
hmm.
but you better keep learning, but you're never going to catch up to the best as far as she was concerned. And that was a fair call.
Well, I'd
So
love. Oh, this conversation can go in so many directions. It's such an interesting and
yeah,
provocative conversation. Um, uh, so we've hosted a lot of students at Exercise Thought. By my estimation, we've hosted 185 students in under 4 years, and so we've seen a mixture of different universities, different personalities, different interests. Most of them come in saying, "Oh yeah, I'd like to work in sport and maybe have my own clinic one day." The percentage of graduates who end up doing either of those two things is significantly less than the percentage that say that's what they want to do. Is that, in your opinion, Andrew, because not everyone's built to do those things, or is it more that um, we have a very narrow view of what physiotherapy is capable of before we then get out into the real world? Or is it something else completely that I've missed?
realistically, what's the mindset of that person who's coming in there who hasn't put the patient first? The
Hmm.
first thing they do is better become a damn good clinician before they think about actually running a practice and doing anything. So
Step
yeah,
one.
they should have walked in and said, "I'm here to learn and I'm here to become the best that I can be, and I've got to solve the problems that I
Mm.
don't understand."
What are the problems that you don't understand?
Ah, anything to do with hands, probably.
Hands. Hold on, but don't you treat the shoulder?
I treat the shoulder,
But
but
you don't know anything about hands.
if someone comes in with hands, I would refer them to somebody who's better. My whole point is, if you come and see me, you're coming to see the guy who can fix shoulder problems under load, probably better than anyone else in the world. Yeah, that's my expertise. Now, if you come and see me for a hip or a knee or a back,
Yes.
and you're a weight training athlete,
Yes.
fair chance I'm the one you'll need to see when you've failed with everybody else.
Okay, so you
But
like looking after the people. You, oh no, you're claiming aptitude, looking after the people that other people have not been able to look after.
they're the only ones who tend to come and see me, or they've been referred by people who have seen me. But even getting to see me is basically pretty close to impossible because really I'm more of a consultant now. I only take on the cases that really interest me now.
Mm,
I've just come back from being in Doha, New York, and Paris,
yep.
working on private consultancy.
Yep. So,
You know, and
physiotherapy can be an international job once someone has proven themselves to be able to help clients solve problems and be so skilled at your craft that people are willing to pay for your airfare and your time in being overseas to look after them.
absolutely. And physiotherapy, I don't even call myself a physiotherapist really from that point of view. I call myself a movement scientist. Because if you
Right.
restrict yourself to saying you're a physio, that means you're probably going to ignore the fact that chiropractic, osteopathy, myotherapy, and other sciences, exercise science, can
Mm.
contribute to your education. If you say physiotherapy, what's the general population think? You're a Pilates instructor,
Well,
or
if I said physical therapist, would that broaden it to include the various professions that you've listed?
I think that works very, very well. Yeah,
Okay. So on
physical
World's Best
therapist.
Physio, I've I needed to choose a name, and World's Best Physio is a little bit shorter than World's Best Physical Therapist. But I consider physiotherapy as replaceable as a phrase with
Mm.
physical therapist and physiotherapist, which is what they say in the last country that we visited on this series. Nigeria was the first interview. Then we visited Rege in Denmark, and now the best country in the world in Australia with yourself. And
Well said.
okay, so physical therapists or
Yeah,
movement scientists. I am very proud of our profession, and very
I
keen to
was.
improve our profession. Well, we
I'm
have a
not proud of it
responsibility
anymore.
to be proud of it once again, don't we,
It
Andrew?
needs to be. We need to take over the profession again because the academics have absolutely destroyed what they're putting out as students.
Right.
You're getting people coming out with Doctor of Physical Therapy who are arrogant enough to think that they can talk about pain science And dude, they are not psychologists. They are not behavioral specialists. They
No.
don't understand. They can't assess a biological problem. They can't understand a biomechanical problem. And they're
Yeah.
talking about psychological issues. Talk about psychological issues when you can solve and clear that there's a biomechanical issue not there.
Okay, so
And
this
they
is where we're
can't
going
do
to
it.
do this is where we're going to do the flipped strongman argument. This is where
Go for it.
you're going to take up the opposite view, and I'm
Yep.
going to take up the typical Andrew Locke view. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to celebrate
I
something
like
just
that.
then. That was quite pretty. So I'm gonna take what your reputation says is your way of approaching things, and
Hmm.
um and building on what you've said before, I've actually met a couple of clients who have seen you and then
Hmm.
gone on to see me. And one of them was raving about, I didn't think my back was capable of anything. And then he just told me to deadlift. And then I realized that I was capable of deadlifting a heavy weight. And now my self-belief in my spine is restored. And and then there was another person who said, "Oh, he just wanted me to lift heavy weights, and that didn't work for me."
They didn't deserve to lift heavy weights at that point. I wouldn't have given them that until they deserved to get them.
Right, you got to earn it. You got to earn the right
Yeah.
to go into the gym, right?
Shit,
And
I don't give anyone a heavy weight unless they earn to give a heavy weight.
so thank you for supporting my argument, which is the Andrew argument. And then you're going to have to counter that with I mean, maybe it's pain science, maybe it's something else, but I'm going to say that the best way for physiotherapists to help people is to understand the that physics doesn't care about your feelings, that biomechanics is irrefutably true and is relevant because we live in a physical world where the laws of gravity, as defined by Newton and Einstein and others, do not change. And I'm also going to say that, yeah, okay, pain is a feeling and pain is an output of the brain, but we can't go mucking around with all that spooky, airy fairy stuff until we've actually first assessed whether the basic um, inertia and leverage principles have been
Almost. Almost. I'll take the counterpoint.
almost
Who walks in your door? A
a
human
person.
being.
Oh no, but they're a physical body,
So you
Andrew.
better have a human relationship before you start to assess. So
Oh,
you've
but
got to
what's
know
the
what that person's perceptions are. The first
okay?
question I ask a person when they walk in the practice is, what's your problem? The first thing they usually say is, I've got a. And I stopped and I said, I didn't ask what you got. I asked, what's your problem?
Mm.
What can't you do? What are the things that you need to be able to do that you can't do? I'm talking about there. I haven't even got to the mechanics, but I'm going to listen to the answer, thinking mechanics. But if I get someone who says, I feel like this issue is putting a strain on my marriage because I can't do the housework I need to do, and my husband's picking up the chores, um, I'm understanding at that point that I'm not just dealing with a biomechanical issue. I've also got to frame my assessment in terms that serve that person's necessary outcome. Whether you order a coffee at the barista, you got to treat that person like a human being. They might be slow with it, but is that a problem? I don't know their history. I'm not going
So,
to
so
be
what you're saying is
confronting.
that it matters what the person's perspective on the world is, what their perceived functional limitations are, how that's affecting their social relationships, and assessing that. But what you've missed, Andrew, is that people are seeing a physiotherapist, they're seeing a physical therapist, they're expecting a physical solution and a physical assessment. And the only complaints that I'm aware of having been made towards the way I practice physiotherapy, and this is true because it's a physical interaction, is that they say, "Oh, I don't understand how you diagnose me without touching my knee." Or I don't understand how this treatment is going to be worked because I paid for hands-on treatment. That's what I was expecting and that's what I was wanting.
Well, I
So
can't
the
remember the
customer
last single
obviously
person who
needs.
ever walked in that expected me to put my hands on them because usually they've failed with every hands-on person who's ever dealt with them. And so that's why they're seeing me because they got to the point that someone's saying, this is a guy who'll be able to solve your problem. And realistically, I've got the reputation for being the person who solves the problem, a bit like Sherlock Holmes. So they're
Oh.
coming to see somebody who's not just another manual therapist. And once again, if manual therapy is necessary, I will refer that person to an appropriate manual therapist.
Hmm.
If after I've done my work and I determine that manual therapy should be a part of that process,
Hmm.
I'll do my work and I will refer them on to a
Hmm.
manual therapy person to do that intervention.
Yep.
If they've got behavioral health issues, I will refer them on to a behavioral health specialist.
Right.
So I'm very integrative of people whose expertise is better than mine at certain parts of the process.
I hope that anyone who's made a judgment of your approach to physical therapy or your approach to helping people, having watched this conversation, now has a broader understanding that it's not just all levers and inertia. Um, it's a person looking after a person.
Yeah, that's what it is. And they're coming to me to understand what the pain trigger might be, what the issues are, where the problems are.
Mm,
And I learn to solve those and I framework them in regard to the goal that they've come in with and the
mhm.
end goal that they need to achieve. Because
Right.
basically, the second question I ask is, and what do I need to get you to be able to achieve?
Uh-huh.
Because the first one is
Goals.
what's your problem?
Yes.
Where have we got to get you to?
Yep.
I at that point must understand the two bookends of where we're going to be.
Can I propose a third question?
You must.
Do you want to get better?
They're paying enough that they probably are.
So you think
Remember,
it
I'm a
goes
chief.
unsaid?
I've worked in functional capacity evaluation in the USA, right?
Mm,
This is part of my background over the last decade ago.
hmm.
And one of the questions that was very interesting was when working with insurance cases,
Hmm.
was you could get to the point where you could say to a patient, can you afford to get better?
Mm,
In other words, you've built up such a legal bill now. I can see
mm,
a solution is here. If you get better, what
hmm.
does that do to your legal case?
Mm,
Can you afford to get better?
mm.
So I don't do any insurance work whatsoever. Zero. Okay. No TAC, no work cover.
Do you
Hell,
think
under
there's
the
a conflict
$1,000.
of interest in insurance work that stops people from getting better?
Also, I charge $1,000 an appointment,
How long is the appointment?
1 hour minimum.
So it's a oh, so it's a maximum $1,000 an hour, but it could
If,
be
if I'm doing certain consultancy, it is.
yeah.
And other points, it basically is fluid around my expectations around what I can do for that person and the amount of time they're going to need, the amount of appointments they might need.
What if it's
There's quite a
overseas?
bit to
Let's
it.
say it's in Denmark. You know, let's say I was living in Denmark and you were coming over to consult
Mm.
for me because I wanted to ask you about my hand. No, no, I'm just kidding. Uh, uh, yeah, would you be expecting that I'm paying for, is it your airfares as well as the lost revenue on the days that you would have been working while you're spending 30 hours traveling from, I'm guessing you're in Melbourne now,
Yeah.
to Copenhagen. So how do you calculate all that?
Well, you pay my business fares
Yep.
and you'll pay my accommodation. Now, at that point, that's
Hmm.
given, that's natural. And my consultancy rate when I'm working is generally going to be approximately $1,000, depending how much I'm working. I
Hmm.
tend to work at about five to $10,000 a day if I'm being booked over a certain period.
Yep.
Book me for a couple of weeks on end, I'll negotiate a different price because it's
Yep.
going to work out further.
Yep.
There's a lot to the consultancy, yes.
Well, I suppose what like one of the advantages, and people might think, oh, $1,000 now, that's a ridiculous amount. Obviously, he's not helping the people who need the help the most. But um,
I get the ones who need it the most, who pay the most.
well, and it gives you the freedom to be able to have conversations like this, where
Mm,
you can actually help to improve the profession as a whole and disseminate information in a way that brings the whole tide up,
mm.
which you couldn't do if you were just burning and churning clients every, you know,
And
20, 30
also,
minutes.
the pressure's on me. I better perform at that rate.
You like pressure though.
We live for it. I just had a, yeah.
All right. Well, this
So
pressure
one of the
idea.
patients who recently flew me overseas, it was a really interesting case because
Mm.
when it really came down to it, I determined that there was a basically underlyingly there was a proprioceptive issue that was the most important part to address. Seeing that person twice a day, every day for say a period of 2 weeks,
Yep.
uh, spectacularly resolved their problem to the point that they
Yeah.
could do what they were after. But they've seen many other eminent professionals over the last 4 years.
Yes.
Actually, written into the contract that I put together there was you have to see me twice a day when I'm over there. It's not negotiable.
Yep.
You are going, if you're flying me over, I need to see you twice a day, every
Yes.
day until the period of time is done.
Yes. And that requires a certain level of commitment, but it also gives you the opportunity to just accumulate so much more data on the state of that person and really understand what's happening before you make an intervention or while you're making an intervention, which I can see as being critical to getting a good outcome. And it's really interesting to hear these experiences because um, uh, a lot of people graduating and even clinicians who are practicing, they wouldn't be aware that this is a possible career pathway. I
Mm,
interviewed someone last week who, yeah, he's young, he wants to travel, and exercise thought is on a way to being a global service. And so we're talking about how we can pair that together, how we can have a physio who's young, who's still needing to learn their craft and become excellent at diagnosing and treating the basics as well as the complex, but also doing that while traveling the world. And
mm,
and it can definitely be done. And we've got various systems and resources and methods of accountability that we're going to use should that go ahead. But that's why I need to give you the choice of going in two directions with this conversation,
mm,
but knowing that we're going to come back to the opposite direction anyway. So either we make a case for Andrew being the world's best physio,
mm.
and I ask provocative questions to poke holes in whatever argument you present, or
Here's a nice argument for you.
sure,
Andrew Locke's patients. Well, let's see. One of them broke a 300 kilogram squat, being the first Australian female to ever squat 300 kilograms yesterday.
okay,
Bench pressed 175 kilograms,
yep,
breaking the Australian record.
yep,
Another one bench pressed 277.5 kilograms,
yep,
breaking the Australian record in a 3 lift competition.
yep,
And another good fellow benched 250 at the age of 46, equaling his personal
yep.
best.
So
And
you're
that's
s-
my
so you're
that's my
saying
successful
that the
patient from
weight
yesterday.
moved in a competitive powerlifting environment,
For example,
for example, could be an objective and therefore agreed upon measurement for why you were the world's best.
that's a fairly good indication that the outcomes that I have achieved have translated to exceptional records and
Hmm.
exceptional athletes
Hmm.
who have consulted me, who perhaps couldn't walk downstairs without pain,
Hmm.
would would be impossible to squat 180 kilos and then can squat 400 kilos in comp a year later.
Well, couldn't that just be
You
because they were kinesiophobic of stairs and
Go and
squatting was
scared
their
me
happier
that freaking
place?
big. Not a toss, dude.
Oh, all right.
That'd be a
All
total
right.
tosser. And I want support where you come from to say that.
To say what?
That the person's kinesiophobic. Prove it.
Well, that was just me being provocative. I have no
I
evidence.
know. I
Never
was
met the
saying the
person.
person who wants to be
Yeah.
provocative, I want them to prove their point. I want them to show me that they're a psychologist and not a physical
Mm.
therapist.
Well, the Tampa scale of kinesiophobia um, purports to be a valid measure of the severity or presence of kinesiophobia by response to a questionnaire.
Hmm?
And it doesn't say anything about a psychologist being required to administer the Tampa scale.
I want to see those patients. I want to see the therapists who are saying kinesiophobia on everything on social media that they've actually issued that scale.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about that diagnosis, and I've used it. I've not
And I've
used
met
it
them
much
too.
recently.
I've met people you would say would definitely have clinically demonstrated that.
Yeah.
That's reasonable. It exists.
Yep. Yep. But it's not a catch-all diagnosis that you use when you don't know what's going on.
There is a place for everything.
Hmm.
And with experience,
Even
you will
you.
see it. Absolutely. There is absolutely everything.
All right, all right.
Gosh,
So I like that you're making it objective. I like that you're making it competitive as well, because being able to say, well, I've helped people perform at this level, and that is an agreed upon ranking system within the powerlifting or the strength competitions.
hmm,
I like that. I really do. What I don't see yet is the international scalability. So you've mentioned Australian records.
hmm.
You've
I,
mentioned
I
you've
deal with a lot of world records too. I can look at Blaine Sumner, the greatest probably lifter of all time, up there
yep,
with super heavies, who
yep,
fractured his spine squatting 255 kilos when he stepped backwards and he had a
yep,
slight stumble and he
yep,
fractured the pars.
yep,
Yeah, I got Blaine. I could look at 10-time world record holder Eddie Cohen,
yep,
internationally, the greatest powerlifter in history. I'm
yep.
working with someone else at the moment who's probably going to try and break the all-time records in America. And I'll
All
be over in the
time
States
like combined squat,
powerlifting.
but yeah.
Yeah, combined. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah, I deal with the international record breakers. I've
Yep.
got JP Price was one of my patients who's
Yep.
at one point held the overall total record.
Sure.
Work with JP quite often.
And can you
There's
can you help
83 world
my
records.
can you help my mom, my grandma to get off the ground by herself?
I say so many people from being told they need to have hip replacements for surgery
Mm.
who walk out of the practice and never have it, and
Mm.
they're usually grandmothers. And
Well,
I'll
and,
probably
and
teach your grandmother to do a Turkish get up at some point if she's going to come in.
well, if she's going to come in is probably the big question, because it does require a certain level of motivation. And I mean, she has recently signed herself up to do some training, which is really good. I think that's because her husband started doing some training himself, and then she wanted to be part of the party. And
And
all
that can
right,
certainly happen. The people who you don't expect to be your best patient might someday be that. I had that
yeah.
experience last year where I usually vet my patients who are coming in and somebody tricked me and they got their grandmother to come in. When she walked in, I thought, you bastard, someone got me here. Now,
Yeah.
my expectations, he was a person who'd never exercised. She was
Yes.
not particularly of any, I'd say she's slightly overweight.
Yep.
Now, my preconception is, what the hell am I going to do here? Because I've got to
Mm.
regress so much work.
Yes.
Well, guess who could do a front plank by the time I'd finished that work?
Yeah.
Guess who could do the work? Guess who did all the things that other people couldn't do?
Yeah.
My favorite patient. I'm never going to forget her.
Yeah. Oh,
I love the gift of
my
those
favorite
people.
patients are older adults too, because they work so hard.
Yeah.
They work so hard. Like I, I this gentleman that I looked after, I've only seen him 3 times so far, so it's really, really newbie gains, I suppose you could say. But the first time he came to his session, he walked to just to get to the session. He walked further than he had walked for 2 years. During the session, he got down and back off the floor for the first time in 2.5 years. And he was experiencing DOMs like you and I probably can't imagine for a significant amount of time. Because he would taken his body from being so conditioned, so deconditioned for such a long time and pushed himself. It was admirable. It was
I
absolutely
want
admirable.
I want you to throw your hat in the ring for the best physio now.
All right.
Well done.
All right. All right. Thank you. Um,
Yep, that's
So
what we love.
the hat goes in. My definition of world's best physio is the physical therapist or physiotherapist who is the first, it's a race, you see,
Hmm,
the first to provide world-class physical therapy to every human on this planet and the next planet
hmm.
at near zero cost within one lifetime.
Good luck. I'm damn expensive. I'm not going to do it for nothing. You seen my car? It's $250,000.
Yeah, see, have you seen my car?
Go.
I don't have one.
Hmm. I'm not a benevolent society. It cost me millions to be as good as I am. The education has cost me, the travel I've done, the courses I've done. I'm not going, why would anyone expect me to do anything less
Mm,
than recoup the costs that's incurred on me to become
right.
educated?
And I'm not saying that you have to
Hmm.
yeah, forego compensation or forego salary in order to provide a service at near zero cost. But we're talking about 11 billion people, Andrew. If 11 billion people pay almost nothing,
Hmm. I love your aspirations and your ideals. And there's a beautiful song that probably encapsulates exactly what you're describing. It's called The Impossible Dream.
Oh yes.
It's called The Dream, The Impossible Dream.
Yes.
And, to fight the unfightable foe,
Yeah, yeah.
to bear with unbearable sorrow, to go with the brave dare not go.
Yes.
And I know that the world will be better for this if one man, scorned and covered with scars,
Mm,
still strove for his last ounce of courage to
mm,
reach the unreachable star.
hmm.
That's exactly what we're all trying to do.
Oh, but it's so reachable, Andrew. It's so
Well,
cl
let's
I can
try.
see it as clear as day. And people say, oh, but that's unreasonable. But I would say the exponential growth in access to the internet, the exponential growth in access to internet connected devices,
How do
the
we get rid
ex
of the idiots on social media then?
oh,
Because they're the
no,
ones
no,
who get
we
the
need the
traction.
idiots. We need the idiots, Andrew. We do.
They're confounding the poor people who are doing Jefferson curls with symptomatic posterior disc bulges and now ending up in surgery.
Yeah, and actually, you threw in there helping people to avoid or preventing surgery as
Mm,
a you put that there as a value proposition.
mm,
As a physical therapist, as a
yeah.
physiotherapist, you have a value to offer, and we could even measure the success of a physical therapist by the number of surgeries. And there's another gentleman who is interested in being interviewed. He also claims to be the best in the world. So far that's three people, including yourself, who have claimed to be the best
No,
physiotherapists
no.
in the world.
People claim I'm the best in the world.
Not are. Um, and this gentleman would, and I won't reveal his name because that'll be a
Yeah.
secret that can tease anyone watching this. He would say that measuring the number of dollars that you save in preventing surgeries is a financial measurement of how successful a physiotherapist is. Saving dollars from the client, from the person, but also from the government or the insurance scheme. And all right, so
We
we,
like
we've
that.
all right, so that's
We
that's
like that.
that's my definition of world's best physio. And
So
and
I'm trying
I
to educate the world as well. And that's one of the things I'm actually discussing with a particular influential government group at the moment
mhm,
is putting together an education system in that country,
mhm.
which will involve picking up the pieces of what the Western physiotherapy education seems to have lost, which is basic sciences
And would
assessment.
this education system that you're talking about building, would that accredit people to practice as physiotherapists?
I think that's part of the system, yes.
It's not Tanzania, is it?
No, it's not. Good to hear
Wakanda?
they're after it.
Well, yeah, I spoke to a Nigerian gentleman last week, and the conversation's online. It was episode one.
Mm,
I've since been speaking to Tanzania as well, and I I've got a conversation I need to have with India as well because these are where the growth these are the
mm,
countries where the growth is going to occur over the next few decades,
mm,
and especially India and Nigeria. Um,
mm,
so, all right, we need to come back to the other option that I gave you. Well, I didn't tell you, but I said there were two options. Um,
mm.
and you reminded me of it when you went poetic. You
The
you you
impossible
showed us
dream.
you showed us a glimpse of the poetic, Andrew. And
Oh, it's very deep, man. Trust me.
oh, and you are deep, aren't you? And this is something else that people miss when they see the stuff that you post online. They focus on the biomechanical and the physical and the oh, you're very provocative, and I like that. The provocative posts, but they might overlook the spiritual, semi-religious posts. I've
That's,
seen you do. What did you
that's
call
right.
it?
The Church of Rehabilitation.
Yes, the Church of
Mm,
Rehabilitation. I've seen
that's
you
a
wear a
registered
cross
church.
around your neck,
Oh,
and I
yeah, it's a
wanted.
registered church.
I
Yeah,
wa-
it
is it
truly is.
actually?
Yeah.
Of course it is. And you registered it?
Yep. Absolutely.
What is your personal faith and how does that change the way that you treat people?
I treat people from all different faiths, and fortunately, I'm pretty well read in quite a few of them.
Hmm.
So it can be quite fun when I might talk to someone about something related to an Islamic approach,
Hmm.
such as I've worked a fair bit in the Middle East, and we might be
Right.
talking about where we are in regard to Moses. Now, Moses is one of the great prophets of Islam. We might be talking about Jesus. He's a prophet in
You mean
Islam as
it's not
well.
just Muhammad?
Not just Muhammad, not at
Mm,
all.
mm,
So there's the beauty of it. When you've read widely, you tend to understand people's educational backgrounds and their
hmm
philosophies.
hmm
So often, when I talk about walking being man's best medicine, perhaps, and I'm
That was
quoting,
Hippocrates.
that's right, Hippocrates, right?
Yeah.
Now, if we're saying that, remember what happened to Moses when the people basically made the golden calf. They weren't allowed to enter the promised land. They had to walk in the wilderness for 40 years. It was not
Yes.
sit on your ass for 40 years.
Yes.
It was walk.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is where you talk to the right person, they get it because you brought something in that they're educated to.
All right.
So
Can I
yeah,
can I throw something at you and then see what you see as the relevance to the work that we do? Um, I think it was the book of Matthew. It said, "To those who have everything, more will be given, and from those who have nothing, everything will be taken." It's not something that we hear in church very often because it's bloody uncomfortable to entertain that idea. Um, so, yeah, do you see that as relevant to the work that we do? Yes or no?
I see it. I see basically the understanding of a faith, and it doesn't have to even be a central faith in a, say, an organized religion.
Mm,
I don't mind if you're coming out of hippie zone and you've, taken ayahuasca. Often you have had a deeply spiritual experience that you're trying to, that's helped you connect.
yes.
I've had quite a few patients who've had that experience.
Yes.
Well, that can open a beautiful conversation as well.
Mm,
So I don't have to stick with whether it's a Trinity or a monotheism.
hmm
We can work around these things. I was just in Paris and loving walking into some of the beautiful churches there. The
Yeah.
Church of Sacre Coeur. You see the beauty of what the Catholic Church has produced and you see the
It's
beauty of the people.
stunning, isn't it?
And I'll go to a mosque in Doha very soon and spend some lovely time
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Um,
cool.
all
So
these
how
things
how
help
have you
us.
educated yourself? It sounds like you've read parts of the Quran or at least
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
Bible as well. How have you gone about this?
I grew up with books in my hand, so I read everything from, it doesn't
Ah.
matter whether it's William Burroughs' The Naked Lunch,
hmm
that's a book everyone should enjoy, or whether
hmm
it's Hunter S. Thompson,
Yep.
people who will take you on an authentically different way of thinking
Uh-huh.
are very useful outside of your traditional ways of thinking. Go read Shakespeare, Macbeth, Hamlet,
There's
Othello.
something rotten in Denmark.
There certainly is, and what a superb book. It's a story of a human,
Yeah.
Hamlet himself.
I've been to
There's a
that
tragic,
castle.
huh?
I've been to the castle, the Hamlet Castle. You should go. If you like Shakespeare and you like Hamlet, you should go
Oh
to the
yeah.
Hamlet Castle. It's easy to find. You just Google Hamlet Castle and
So all these things develop and
yeah.
create a really good professional. I think you
Mm.
have to get so many. I think as you look into it, where we could talk about the First Nations, tales telling and storytelling.
Dreamtime.
Wow, yeah, and that's just here. You can go to all the different cultures.
Yeah.
Education comes through a lot of storytelling, and we really need that storytelling, and it helps us develop. It doesn't matter where your stories come from.
So what's the
Now,
story that we want to tell for the physio? I'm sorry, I interrupted you, but like
yeah, the
story,
story is
what's the story that we want?
it should start with the story of asking a student, because remember, here's the big one:
Mm,
50% of all Australian physiotherapists will have left the profession within 5 years. They're gone.
mm.
Why are they gone? It's the
What's
education system that's failed them. It has not served them. I would say,
mm,
what happened the day, what was your expectation? And there should be a questionnaire done that. What is your expectation the day before you walk into university about what this
ah.
course will provide you when you leave? I think they're being absolutely
So
disappointed
you reckon it's a mismatch between the expectation of the
massively.
yeah
I went in
and what's
expecting
been
to be able to
delivered?
solve problems. I came out realizing I had the tools to now learn how to solve problems. Now, these students are coming out being told, oh, the data says it doesn't matter how you lift. Uh, you don't understand the data. You don't. Here's the one. I'm going to be lecturing to the University of Melbourne students in 2 days, right? Now, one of the first questions I'll ask them is, who here can tell me the muscle that holds lumbar lordosis most effectively in the upright human? They are all going to
Hold on.
be,
Can I have a guess that
you
holds
can have a
lumbar
crack.
lordosis most effectively?
Yep.
I
What
mean,
muscle has
are we
the
talking about in all movements and all postures, or are we
mostly
talking
in
about
that position? Yeah, if you were going to bend forward, what's the thing that's going to hold your neutral spine most effectively in a lordotic position?
a
It's a fun one
lordotic
because don't
position?
worry, there's crickets in the room when I ask that. And these are all students who've just been
Diaphragm.
good try. No, it's going to be the thoracic components of your lumbar erectors.
But if I'm bracing by holding my breath as I flex forward,
It doesn't help you hold lumbar lordosis as effectively as the tendon of the thoracic erectors, which passes most
hold on.
superiorly to the
You
pelvis.
said no. You asked me what muscle, and now you're saying it's a tendon.
Muscles are and tendons basically are the same end of it.
Are they?
Well, try and cut them apart and find out where you find the junction. But basically, it's the muscle. The muscle has to produce the force in the tendon to be able to hold that position.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what muscle is it that produces the force on that tendon? It's the thoracic erectors. You can look at McGill's studies.
that's a group of muscles. That's not one muscle.
Yeah, we could say iliocostalis if you wish, or longissimus. You could differentiate the two. You can play with them.
But
I
which
don't mind.
one? Which muscle
Muscle
is?
group, perhaps we will play with. How's that?
Oh,
Though I could go to McGill's book and he'll give us one of the two.
yeah.
So
He's got a lot of reputation online nowadays, hasn't he?
he's got a reputation of 250 peer-reviewed papers he's published. He's got a bit of a clue. Better than pretty much anyone else on the planet.
Yeah,
So yes, that is the
yeah.
one that has the most effective force vector that holds lumbar lordosis.
The erectors.
Well, especially those. The lumbar erectors don't have the same because they have a
Mm.
combined shear force and compressive
Mm.
um, vector.
You mean it's
Whereas
not
the
all about the glutes, Andrew?
not all of it, but by the time you're over 40, it probably will be.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. All right. So you've educated yourself on the world's faiths, and you see a high. You set a high price
Hey,
on
there we
under
go. What's the first recorded lumbar spine injury?
the first recorded lumbar spine injury.
Yeah, let's call it a sciatic injury then, just to be more specific. What's the world's first recorded sciatic nerve injury?
My brain has immediately gone to what is the first record, as in like
Yep,
what is the first written text.
yep. There's two of them
Um,
actually, but I'll give you one.
well, it would be a stone tablet. It wouldn't be a book.
Well, the recorded injury that is first specifically sciatic
Hmm.
is Jacob in 1500 BC.
Was that not a dislocated hip?
No, it wasn't a dislocated hip. He was touched behind the hip, making him lame. And since then, the sciatic nerve has been considered not kosher to eat. It's a sciatic nerve injury.
But didn't Jacob himself talk about his hip being dislocated when he wrestled with an angel?
No, it wasn't. No, and it depends, I suppose, on the translation. But there's a reason that the sciatic nerve is since then not kosher. It's because of the touching behind the hip of the sciatic nerve. Now, if it was just a hip joint, it wouldn't be the sciatic nerve, would not be in kosher.
Was it the right hip or the left hip?
Good question. As far as I know, it's the left. That's a good question.
I just wonder if
But
that
either
means the
way,
right
there's a
sciatic nerve
first
is not kosher.
recorded injury that we
Yeah.
have that's related to sciatic nerve. And that's 1500 BC.
I've actually
So,
been tempted to tell the story that you've just told
yeah.
to some young children, so boys and girls over here, because I've met a lot of kids that have a lot of pent up energy. Yeah,
Mm,
they're being diagnosed with ADHD or ADHD, yeah, direct
yep.
translation. Um, and and you see how keen they are to go outside and wrestle and play and
Mm,
compete and move their bodies, and how difficult it is for them to sit inside. And and I wanted to tell them the story of Jacob, because they love wrestling, and they really love that physicality, and they understand that if someone gets hurt, it's not fun anymore. But
that's
they
right.
want that controlled aggression, and I think it's really healthy to have that controlled aggression. And I wanted to tell them the story about, yeah, he who wrestled with an angel.
That's
Um,
right, Jacob. And then he asked for a blessing and became called Israel.
right,
Yeah. Isn't
right.
it great?
What, and this is
And
something that people don't know about you, Andrew. They don't know that
Jacob is
you're
the
a
son of
deep
Isaac, who was
thinker.
the son of Abraham, who was the foundation of both great faiths.
What was Abraham's name before he was Abraham?
Oh, he got me there. That's a good one.
I think it was Abram.
Abraham. Yes,
I
it
think it was
probably is.
Abraham, and then it was Abraham. Um,
So there's
all
a
right, favorite.
wonderful, that's why I'm saying it's so important for our professionals to
Mm.
suddenly realize it's a world outside of data. You
Well,
need,
I would say that there is data in the stories of our
there is,
traditions.
there's evidence,
Mm.
and it's not an outcomes study.
Hmm.
It's not an interventional study. It's a
Mm.
story. That's where the stories come in very importantly.
So would you say that as far as evidence goes, we talk about three. We talk about scientific evidence, we talk about the clinician's experience and the
Mm,
patient experience, the life evidence. Would you say that there is a fourth, which is the stories of our traditions?
very much. Yeah.
Is there a
We've got,
fifth?
well, that's going to influence us significantly, isn't it? Because we're
Mm.
so influenced by our communities.
Mm. Mm.
And you actually got me. It's a very good is Arabic saying about the fact that you don't want to learn from someone who's learned, you want to learn from someone who's done.
Oh, okay.
And
Because
that's the bit part we
because
go back to where
doing
you talk about the
doing
apprenticeship
teaches us more. Ah, because the apprenticeship teaches us more than the learning.
in the book. Absolutely. But it's good to read the book, but you better go out and do it.
Well, that's why this is a conversation. And I believe the solution, I believe the story for the physiotherapy professional, for the physical therapy cohort of clinicians across the world is going to be something like this. At one point in time, we were all doing different things and we
Mm,
all had our trends and fashions. It was
mm,
elastic bands, and then it was EMG, and then it was
mm.
uh, ultrasound, and then it was pain science, and all we were experimenting with all this. But then as we had a global conversation, we realized what the truth was, and then came out the other side really it's actually quite simple,
Yeah.
and it's very effective when it's simple.
There is no bad exercise. There is just the wrong exercise at the wrong time for the wrong reason to the wrong person. And the same with therapy. There
Mm,
is no inherently bad therapy.
mm,
It's just the wrong therapy applied to the wrong person for the wrong
mm,
reason at the wrong time.
mm.
Everything's got its place,
But
but
would
it
but
takes
there is
experience to
effective and
know.
ineffective for that time and place.
Sure, gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's what clinical reasoning is about.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
ability to make those decisions. And that's why I got 30 years of practice behind me. Yeah, I make those decisions faster than somebody else.
Mm.
And that's what
Because
we say.
your brain has learned to differentiate between one clinical pattern and another.
Yeah, well, Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book Blink,
It
which is
did.
all about how experts see things before they consciously know and explain to themselves, even know how they see them. Well, that's
It is
exactly what we do.
it is prone to error though. I mean, you might have read,
Of course.
was it Kahneman
And
and
that's why we test and
Tversky,
retest our
Thinking
theories.
Fast and Slow?
That's why we retest our theories.
Yes.
That's what we can do so fast. Test, retest,
Yes.
intervention.
Yes.
It takes a moment in the clinic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's all. That's exactly what we're doing.
Is there a conversation that you want our profession to have, or do you think that
Yeah,
that is the
conversation.
conversation?
Get rid of the word non-specific lower back pain. Doesn't exist. It's not a clinical diagnosis.
Oh, but it
Every
makes me
research
feel
paper,
better when I can't diagnose the
yeah,
patient.
it does. It makes you feel like you don't have to be actually competent in doing anything.
I disappoint so many patients when they hear that they've got non-specific lower back pain. They're like, "What do you mean I'm non-specific? I want to be
Yeah,
specific. I'm a person and I want a
yeah.
personal
How shit a
diagnosis."
therapist are
And
you?
I...
I'll go see somebody who can diagnose me. And that's actually what Henry Gray said, I believe, in the first of his recommendations in Gray's Anatomy. It was he was told, if
Yeah.
you can't diagnose, the patient will go down the road and see the quack who can.
Yes.
So
Yes.
get damn good at diagnosis.
Yeah. And yeah. All right. What
So nothing is non-specific. And it's not a clinical diagnosis. It's basically a description of
yes.
symptoms. You haven't given a diagnosis. And so we need to take that away and throw out every research paper that has the words non-specific lower back pain
Oh,
because
hold
it
on.
has no
I'll
value.
just do Control Alt Delete. Yeah, there
Yeah,
we go.
just
It's gone.
go. It's gone.
Yeah.
Now see what you're left with.
Oh,
Wow.
there's a lot of information here I'm still left with, Andrew.
It's a
Wow.
hell of a lot of information, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
But our students are being shoveled this shit down their throat. Non-specific lower back pain. Core exercises don't change non-specific lower back pain. That's
Mm.
because it's a non-specific freaking core exercise on a non-specific problem. Of course it didn't work.
Mm.
Oh, but that must mean pain science is valid. Oh, you ass. Who is pulling that deception off?
Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be open.
Mm,
Yeah, if we decide the destination before we start the journey, then it's inevitable, isn't it?
it is. And I've
And
always, and the
mm,
rule is every time you make an unbreakable rule, someone will walk in your door the next day and they will break it. There is no unbreakable
well, that's the
rules.
difference between religion and faith, isn't it? Religion
Yeah.
has these unbreakable rules. It's sacrilegious or it's heretical
Yeah.
to defy those rules.
Mm.
And faith is not as rigid. It's not as dogmatic. Um,
Faith, basically, I think described as the expectation of, or the basically the confirmed expectations of things not yet seen, based upon experiences based before. I think that's got to be Matthew or Timothy. It's right in there
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, yeah. Actually, can I? So you've put your hat in the ring as being the world's best physio, and I've simply
Some
said
did.
that I've stated my definition. I haven't claimed
Gotcha. Yeah.
worthiness of the title yet. Um, I'm going to be interviewing someone later today who I will be asking to um, answer the question, was Jesus Christ, as documented in the Bible, the world's best physical therapist or physiotherapist? There are documented
Yeah.
healings. Um, you know, pick up your mat and walk. Yeah, just saying to a paralyzed person,
Yeah. Go. Yeah.
go and walk.
Yeah.
Saying to a leper, blind people,
Yep. You'll
the list
see.
goes on, and a lot of us are familiar with these stories.
I think
Um,
we'll call him a health professional if you don't mind.
we can call him a health professional,
I think we
yeah,
better. Yeah.
because it goes beyond the physical. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, he cast out demons as well, didn't he?
he did.
Yep.
Yes. So,
Let's say the pain scientists.
oh, he was just casting out non-specific lower back pain, Andrew. That's
Mm.
what he was doing. Yeah, be gone. Um, all right. So now you've got a competition. You're a health professional. Jesus Christ, yeah, it's been said just now, can be described as such.
Yep.
Um, others would describe him
And the
as
300-kilogram bench presser with a sore shoulder comes in, and Jesus and myself have both got him. I reckon I'll get him better first.
You reckon you're getting better first than Jesus?
I reckon because Jesus probably showed me how to, and he probably wants me to do it first.
Because those who are first shall be last, and those who are last shall be first.
Hey, absolutely. He's going to be demonstrated to be the right guy because I learned from him then. Because when
So,
it comes down to it, I'm going to actually say I like to take myself back to Galileo
okay,
because
throwing cannonballs out
Galileo,
of the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Gallo, Galileo taught Borelli. Borelli
Uh-huh.
wrote the first book on biomechanics in 1680.
Uh-huh.
And so he learned physics from Galileo.
But who did Galileo learn from?
Well, that's a good question. Galileo did produce a lot of original thought, we could say, because that was his job, because he wrote the discussion on two world systems.
He
I think
did.
it was 1632.
hmm
Yeah. Now, Borelli then wrote the first book on biomechanics, which is 1680, even though he died on December 31st, 1679.
Some would say that Galileo didn't produce original thought because he didn't invent the telescope. He's given credit for inventing the telescope, but he actually just put
Oh,
together other inventions that then created the telescope.
that is the rumor. Yeah. But he definitely put together the arguments that definitely offended the church in his
hmm
discourses. Now,
Something that
he's
you're not afraid to
so-called,
do either.
we got it. So Galileo teaches Borelli. Borelli comes up with the first book on biomechanics, and his estimations on spinal forces
hmm
are almost spot on. Even looking at today, he was very much close on, and he even understood the role of intervertebral discs that they had to be involved in load sharing.
Mm.
That's 1680. Sir Isaac Newton wrote his three laws of motion 1687.
hmm
So you can look at, we are basically the people who are following from this intellectual line.
Mm.
And it is strong. There is so much great thought that we can follow through
Mm.
in the public basically record and the research, even though a lot of it's not written in English.
Can I ask
I
you
was
about
going back
quantum
to,
mechanics?
hmm?
Can I ask you about quantum mechanics?
You can ask me, but it's not my speciality at all.
Also,
I'm not the
Einstein,
world's
when
best.
he wrote the general relativity paper, um, became quite prominent as the physicist, a bit of a
A
rock
little
star
bit.
physicist. Um, and he described quantum mechanics as spooky stuff. And long story short, if you smash two particles into each other, each photons, they will then produce products, and those products, my understanding is, communicate immediately to one another, no matter
And
how
how we talk
far.
about communication, are we putting a human slant on that, or is that simply an
Mm,
uninvested communication? And the word communication then becomes, what are we talking about? Are we investing that with our own personalities?
information exchange.
Hmm. Or is it information at all? Or is it just physics exchange?
Is there a
Is it?
difference?
Yeah, because it may have no invested intelligence behind it. Communication often, it depends how we wish to look at the word communication. I think we have to define it.
Mm. Well, could I say they respond to the changing state of the other?
Yeah, that'd be good.
They respond to the changing state of the other immediately, no matter
Hmm.
how far apart they are, which means that the
Hmm.
response is faster than the speed of light, assuming that it's traveling the response from one to the other,
Hmm.
but it's more coexisting. So, if you're in one country and I'm in another country, and people talk about this with twins, right? Oh, there was a twin over here and a twin over there, and in the moment that this person just got a gut feeling that something wasn't right, this other one was in a serious accident.
Yep.
So, is it spooky stuff, or is there some untapped potential in what we're describing as the quantum
Certainly
realm?
gives us evidence that there's more to understand. And it
Mm,
doesn't mean we have to be able to explain it today, but it
mm,
means we search for the meaning tomorrow, if not today. So I'm very comfortable with that. It's
mm,
saying there's more to know. Great. But I wouldn't want to
mm.
pretend that the answer is already here. We're
Yes.
speculative. There's a lot more to go. We're early. This is early 21st century.
Yeah, yeah. We're
We're
just
not
getting
going to
warmed
know it
up,
all
aren't we?
yet.
This is just a
Yeah.
warm-up set.
It's so early.
Yeah.
We're doing damn well until we got the
Well,
pain science and shit like that fucked up our students. We're
yeah, but
doing really, really well.
it's a balancing act though, isn't it? Like we went too far biomechanically and then we
I
went
didn't
too
see
far
that. I never
pains.
saw it go too far
It
biomechanically.
didn't go too far
And I was
biomechanically.
I was there when we were doing McConnell taping. I was there when we were
Hmm.
first under. Oh shit! I was learned under Maitland's system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what was Maitland's major thing? Communication with the patient.
That's not what people remember Maitland for, though.
That's right. But they're the people who haven't read Maitland. It's like the people who haven't read
Uh,
McGill who dribble on about pig spines. Yeah, what do the pig spines actually show? They
that's
show the
because
same
people
science.
haven't read Locke either.
Oh, damn. Well, they can because I got a 12-month lumbar spine mentorship course already done. And they'll spend 12 months becoming shit hot and less than the 20 years it took me to get good.
But my concern is that they don't understand how you've steeped yourself in religious tradition, how you've really explored the human experience at an international level, and how you've placed such a high value on empathizing with another individual by understanding the problems as they see it and their aspirations as they see it. I don't know if they're going to get that from the 12-week course.
12-month course.
12 month, I don't know if they're going to get that from the 12-month course.
They're going to get a shit ton because the course itself, every month I put in research papers and further lectures. It's
Mm.
an ever expanding universe of
But
works.
what
I
about the
put in,
religious traditions? Is that included?
yes, and it's
Ah,
in module 3. Absolutely.
okay. 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 Well,
Oh
who knows?
gosh, yeah.
We might be able to pay.
Evolution. We put evolution and basically the faith traditions are in
Yes.
that chapter 3.
There you
To
go.
understand the history of where we
Yes.
are today, you have to go back to, say,
We might need to
Pythagoras.
organize a world best physio promo code for this. No,
Shit, yeah.
I'm just
What do
kidding.
you reckon? I'll do it for you.
Well,
But yeah,
otherwise, I'm afraid of getting an invoice from you for the 1 hour that we've spent talking to one another because I don't think I've got a spare $1,000.
we've got a payment plan. Don't worry.
Oh, you had
Don't
that
worry.
one
I'm not
ready.
charging Melbourne Uni next week on Thursday either. This is a
Well,
love job. I want to save our profession. Like yourself, I have the
yeah.
impossible dream. I want to save our profession. I want these students who 50% of them are going to be lost and out of our career in 5 years because of their dissatisfaction. I
So
want to save that.
what's the metric? Is that the metric? The percentage
Yeah,
of people who have a 10-year career, 20-year career, 30-year career, and so on? Like, is that the
yeah.
metric?
There was a recent one put out by the Australian Physiotherapy Association. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the number. 50% are gone in 5 years. And someone
Yep.
said it's like 60% in the UK. Now, that never happened in my time. That never happened with the people who graduated with me. There's the universities that are failing the students who are coming in with an expectation of being able to learn to be effective.
I I think part of the issue is that government funded education through the HEX program in Australia, for example,
Beautiful.
means that I can sign up to a course and not have to pay anything, not have to invest anything out of my own pocket
Mm,
until it's future Sam's problem.
mm,
So my preference, again, I've mentioned this before, the apprenticeship style model.
mm,
My preference would be that the person being apprenticed into the profession
mm.
is investing in their own education from day one. Maybe there's a
Yes.
prepayment, so it's from day zero. Um, and that they then gain accreditation to practice as a physical therapist in a particular region, whether that's Australia or the world,
Yeah.
because that's really what the university is providing. They're giving a ticket, a piece of paper that says you are licensed, or you are licensed to apply to the governing body of regulating health professionals, which is ARPA in Australia.
Mm,
And then ARPA says, yep, if you got a degree from that university, you can be a physiotherapist. Even though
correct.
Andrew and Sam are debating the material worth of those degrees.
Mm. Yes, they're not serving the patient when a physical therapist who's just graduated, a patient comes in with a symptomatic disc bulge that anyone else could have been able to diagnose from the last 20 years ago, and
Right.
they pull out a whiteboard and tell them that they're kinesiophobic and their pain is multifactorial, and
Yes.
the patient's actually got a fairly obvious directional issue. It's fairly
Yes.
diagnosable,
Yes. And
and the
if you want,
patient's being,
and if you're
yeah,
watching this and you're a student or you're a young physio and you don't know how to diagnose a disc bulge or you don't know how to diagnose the
mm,
basics, I would recommend
mm,
going to exercisethought.com. Under the exercise tab, we've got a Google document that is several hundred pages put together with practitioners and students working together,
beautiful.
freely available, and it lists out the most common diagnoses, how to assess them, and how to treat them. Some people
Mm,
would say that Bruckner and Kahn or other textbooks could give you that information, or Physiopedia or whatnot. The goal of this Google document is that it is adapting more quickly than a published book,
oh, yes,
and that it is available for free to everyone in the world,
so
and
good.
that it creates a conversation about, well, if 20% of your clients are walking in with back pain,
Mm,
and 15% are walking in with neck pain, and 10% are working in with knee pain, you can look after a good chunk of your caseload, a good chunk of the world population by getting really good at just these three body parts.
mm,
And
damn good.
and don't go after tendinopathy as your first one,
Mm.
please. Like, I know it's sexy because, it's easy to
Pretty easy to
diagnose.
diagnose too.
It's easy to diagnose. And
Don't screw it up.
I think that's why a lot of young practitioners are gravitating towards the easy to diagnose ones, or, oh, it's non-specific low back pain. That's easy to diagnose, or
Oh, don't
it's,
worry, there's idiots out there talking about non-specific shoulder pain now.
oh, just you wait. Oh,
Oh, yeah, they're just circle jerking. They're all just supporting this crap. Peter
yeah.
O'Sullivan has yet to rehab a world-class athlete that I've ever heard of.
Well,
Now,
maybe it's
how the
because he
hell
doesn't
could he?
talk about it as much as you do.
I want to see evidence of a single world-class athlete that he's brought back to performance. If he wants to write papers on whether you can lift with a flexed spine or
Have you
not.
spoken with Peter?
No,
You
but I
guys need
want
to
to
be
see
in a
him.
room
I want to.
together. I
Oh
reckon
yeah,
you'd
why
agree on
not?
so many
Because he
things.
wrote a brilliant paper in '97 where he said you can only have a fantastic outcome basically if you specify the problem. That was his spondylolisthesis paper.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was on it. He was on it
Yeah.
so good. I want to know, why did you fail? What happened?
I heard a rumor that Peter, when he walked in day one as a student of physiotherapy,
Hmm?
said that he wanted to be the best physiotherapist in the world. That's a rumor.
You
Um,
better interview him.
I think I've sent an invitation out to
Good.
Peter in one way or form. I'll follow up on that.
Do.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I feel like we could go on talking about this forever.
And we will one
But
day.
we and we will one day because we'll be in the cloud.
Yeah.
And artificial intelligence would have codified what Andrew would say and what Sam would say, and then yeah, we could have a
Oh,
conversation forever.
it'll take a good luck on that one, Sam, catching us, man. We got a lot to codify.
Well, maybe there's a different way
I
that we
love
could
your
have the
work. It's
conversation.
fantastic. Your dreams are good. Your goals and aspirations are incredibly honorable. I love it. Great to meet you on this platform.
Thanks,
And I
Andrew.
look
And I
forward to be able
really
to
enjoyed our
contribute to
first
that same
conversation.
life.
And I do admire what you're doing, shaking the tree of the physio profession, because there's a lot of agitation that we will benefit from. It stirs up conversation and it stirs up ideas. And I'm a big fan of books, and I'm glad that you've recommended so many books. And I want to recommend one just to wrap up today's conversation. That's Anti-Fragility. Have you read Anti-Fragility?
No, sounds good.
Nicholas Taleb. Sorry, no,
Right?
sorry, it's Nassim Taleb, and it's the opposite of being fragile.
Yeah.
So if you consider a fragile thing, it'll break at the first sign of stress. It'll break at the first sign of chaos or disorder. Whereas anti-fragile, it's not robust. It's not strong. It's the thing that benefits and improves and becomes better because of chaos, stress, disorder. So it's the
Mm.
human body. You know, if you put a heavy weight on the bar and you start benching away, the human body, being anti-fragile, will come back from that experience with stronger, um, yeah, firings in their neural system and stronger
And
contractibility
that's
of
why
the
technique matters because we've got to teach them motor control patterns that are effective.
correct. And and um and we learn technique through stress as well, because someone says, "Oh, hey, what the hell are you doing with your shoulder blade in that position? It needs to be in this position. That's a better technique, and you're going to be stronger." And then from that disorder of a new perspective, a new way of seeing the world, we improve our technique and therefore improve our bench press. So anti-fragility would be my recommendation for a book. And thank you very much for today's conversation.
Super Sam, good luck out there.
You
And
too, man.
see if anyone else can fix the bench press shoulder as good as me.
Well, actually, on that note, we need to invite everyone else to join the conversation. So
Mm.
if you've got a an exercise, a thought, a joke, a correction that you would like to make on the back of the conversation that Andrew and I have just had, please put it in the comments, or otherwise contact us in whichever way you choose. And we'll enjoy having you part of the conversation.
Let's save the world, Sam.
Let's save the world.